What if I told you that most people today are living in quiet defeat, not because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they lack mental strength? We scroll endlessly, compare constantly, and envy silently. Then we wonder why we feel stuck, weak, and directionless. We chase comfort, yet feel exhausted. We avoid pain, yet suffer daily. The truth is uncomfortable, but unavoidable. Comfort is killing us slowly, while struggle harsh and demanding holds the seed of real power. The ancient Stoics figured this out way before smartphones and social media. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, an amazing Stoic philosopher, said, "You control your mind, not what happens outside." Realize this, and you will find strength. That is not just a quote. It is a weapon, a mindset, a way to exist in chaos without being shaken by it. Stoicism does not make life easy. It makes you unbreakable. In this message, we dive into 8 brutal Stoic laws principles that force you to level up mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. No inspirational fluff, no comforting lies, just raw truth, battle-tested in ancient Rome and painfully relevant today. But before we begin, understand this. This is not background noise. This isn't something you can just half listen to while scrolling. It's a wake-up call. Don't skip a single part missing. Even one principle could cost you clarity when you really need it. The first law is this: embrace discomfort like a friend. Modern culture teaches us to avoid pain at all costs, but the Stoics taught the opposite move, toward it with open eyes. Look back at your greatest moments of growth. Did they happen when life was easy, or when it forced you to choose between breaking and rising? Marcus Aurelius faced war, illness, betrayal, and loss, yet led with calm because he did not avoid discomfort. He allowed it to shape him. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. While modern life whispers, "Avoid pain," Stoicism responds, "Train for it." The cold shower, the difficult conversation, the exhausting workout, this is where character is carved. The Stoics believed controlled discomfort prepares you for uncontrollable chaos. Seneca practiced sleeping on the floor, eating plain food, and wearing old clothes not out of self-punishment, but self-mastery. When life strips away comfort, the untrained panic, the Stoic remains steady. It reveals who you are and who you are becoming. Avoiding small pain today guarantees greater suffering tomorrow. Lean into the fire, and fear begins to dissolve. That is the beginning of freedom. The second law is to stop being owned by your emotions. Most people live as servants to their moods. One insult ruins the day. One inconvenience derails discipline. One feeling dictates action. But if emotions rule you, you are enslaved. Epictetus warned that anyone who can anger you becomes your master, because you have handed them control over your inner world. Stoicism does not suppress emotion, it disciplines it. The child reacts, the Stoic responds. Marcus Aurelius wrote that distress comes not from events, but from our judgments. About the man, judgments can be revoked at any moment. This is brutal because it removes excuses. You cannot blame others anymore, but it is also empowering because it returns control to where it belongs, within you. Emotional strength means feeling anger without cruelty, fear without retreat, sadness without collapse. Pause when triggered. Breathe. Ask whether the feeling serves you. Respond with intention. This is not coldness. It is command. In a world of emotional chaos, calm becomes rarand, therefore powerful. The third law is to stop expecting fairness. Life owes you nothing. Expecting fairness is one of the fastest ways to suffer. You work hard and someone undeserving advances. You love sincerely and are abandoned. You do the right thing and still pay the price. The Stoics never expected life to be kind. They expected loss, betrayal, and change, and because they expected it, they were prepared. Fairness is a comforting idea, but clinging to it weakens you. When you say, "This isn't fair," you are often saying, "I don't want to deal with reality." But growth does not come from fairness. It comes from resilience. The Stoic builds strength so deep that injustice cannot destroy him. Radical responsibility is not about blame it, it's about ownership. Life may strike unfairly, but your response is always your move. The fourth law is to focus only on what you can control. Epictetus made this clear. Your power exists in a very small space. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices. Let go of everything, people. Outcomes. Chance. You can't control the storm, but you can steer your ship. The Stoic does not waste energy screaming at the wind. He adjusts his course each time stress arises. Ask whether it is within your control. If yes, act. If no, let it go. This shift alone can transform your life. The fifth law is voluntary hardship. In a comfort-addicted world, discipline becomes a superpower. The Stoics challenged themselves before life forced hardship upon them. Fasting, cold exposure, early rising, denial of luxury, these were not acts of cruelty, but preparation. Willpower is built through chosen resistance. Small acts of discipline compound into unshakable strength. When tough times hit hand, the Stoic stays calm. He's ready for it. The sixth law is detachment from outcomes. Obsession with results makes you fragile. Results fluctuate. Effort endures. When you fall in love with the process, you cannot lose. You show up, do the work, and remain grounded regardless of outcome. Ironically, detachment often leads to greater success because desperation disappears. Embrace death, my friend. Memento mori, remember, you're going to die. It's not grim, it's I hope. Death cuts through the nonsense, kicks procrastination to the curb, and brings urgency to life. Time isn't on your side, so stop wasting it. Live for what? That's right, not for others' approval. Praise fades, but integrity lasts. Do the right thing even when no one is watching. Keep your word, even when it costs you. The Stoic does not perform for the crowd. He answers to conscience. Stoicism does not promise comfort. It promises clarity. It teaches mastery over self in a chaotic world. You do not need permission. You do not need motivation. You need decision. Begin now. Train the mind. Expect resistance. Live deliberately, because when you become unshakable from within, nothing outside can break you. Most people never realize when they've surrendered their inner authority. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, through small compromises, one skipped discipline, one unchallenged excuse, one emotional reaction justified instead of questioned. Over time, the mind becomes reactive instead of deliberate, fragile instead of resilient. The Stoics warned about this erosion. They understood that the greatest danger is not chaos outside, but disorder within. Mental weakness doesn't look dramatic. It looks like procrastination masked as planning, distraction disguised as rest, emotional indulgence framed as being real. The Stoics saw through these illusions. Every time you let your thoughts wander, someone or something else takes the wheel. Your habits, your fears, the opinions of strangers. And once the mind is no longer yours, the body follows. This is why Stoicism is confrontational. It does not comfort your ego. It challenges it. It asks you to look at your daily life and admit where you are undisciplined, where you are avoiding responsibility, where you are blaming circumstances instead of correcting behavior. He wrote it to correct himself. That alone tells you everything about the seriousness of this philosophy. Marcus Aurelius did not write meditations to inspire others. When you embrace discomfort repeatedly, something subtle but profound happens. The mind stops panicking at resistance. You begin to separate pain from meaning. Pain is no longer interpreted as failure, but as friction. And friction, when applied consistently, sharpens instead of breaks. The Stoic does not seek suffering, but he no longer fears it. Fear loses power the moment it is examined instead of obeyed. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It is distance. The ability to step back and observe your inner state without drowning in it. Most people become their emotions. They say, I am angry, I am anxious, I am broken. The Stoic says, anger is present, anxiety is arising, pain is here. That linguistic shift is not trivial. It creates space between the observer and the experience. And in that space, choice lives. Once you understand this, manipulation becomes obvious. Advertisements, outrage cycles, social media algorithms, they all depend on emotional impulsivity. They profit from your inability to pause. The Stoic pause is revolutionary. It breaks the loop. It turns reaction into response. And response, guided by reason, is where power returns to the individual. Expecting fairness is another illusion that drains strength. Fairness implies predictability. Life offers none. The Stoics were not pessimists. They were realists. They trained themselves to expect loss, misunderstanding, delay, and injustice, not because they enjoyed hardship, but because false expectations create unnecessary suffering. When you stop demanding that life be fair, you stop being surprised by reality. This does not make you passive. It makes you strategic. You stop wasting energy on resentment and redirect it toward preparation, skill, endurance, self. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is required of me now?" That question alone separates those who stagnate from those who evolve. Control is narrower than people think, and that is precisely why it is powerful. You do not control outcomes, but you control effort. You do not control others, but you control your conduct. You do not control the future, but you control your readiness. The Stoic mind is not scattered. It is anchored when the external world shakes. The internal world remains structured. Embracing tough times helps us learn that we can handle discomfort. Hunger goes away, colds pass us, and boredom won't break you. These lessons are physical, not intellectual, and once learned, they cannot be unlearned. The person who has chosen difficulty becomes immune to panic when difficulty arrives uninvited. Detachment from outcomes completes the transformation. When you no longer tie your worth to results, you stop negotiating with your principles. You act correctly because it is correct, not because it guarantees success. This removes desperation from effort. Desperation clouds judgment. Calm consistency sharpens it. The Stoics understood something modern culture resists. Meaning is found in alignment, not achievement. A life lived in accordance with reason and virtue remains intact, even when plans collapse. Success without integrity corrodes. Failure with integrity strengthens. This is why Stoicism produces individuals who are difficult to intimidate and impossible to corrupt. And then there is death, a final teacher, not as a threat, but as a clarifier. When you remember that your time is limited, trivial anxieties lose weight. Petty conflicts shrink. Excuses sound hollow. You stop postponing courage. You stop waiting to become who you already know you should be. Memento mori is not about darkness. It is about precision. It sharpens priorities. It forces honesty. It strips away nonsense. The Stoic does not live in fear of death. He lives in fear of wasting his life. That fear, when used correctly, becomes fuel. Virtue, in the end, is the only thing that survives change. Reputation fades. Wealth moves hands. Power dissolves. But the way you lived, the way you chose under pressure, the standard you upheld when it costs you, those shape who you become internally. And that internal structure determines how you face every storm. Stoicism does not promise happiness. It promises coherence. A life where your actions align with your values, where your emotions do not rule you, where difficulty does not derail you, where silence does not scare you, where solitude strengthens rather than weakens. This is not a philosophy for spectators. It is for practitioners, for those willing to confront themselves daily without excuses. But once carried long enough, it becomes familiar. And once familiar, it becomes freedom.